Hey guys, what's up? This is Stock Retail coming back to you. I'm going to be a pretty short one today, but I wanted to cover a little discussion on the Reg Show threshold list. Some of you maybe have seen whether tweets or YouTube or whatever discussion on that. Cover real quick a little bit about that and a little bit of history on AMC, and in fact, also a history on another ticker. Some of you may have heard this story. So, the reason I want to cover this, you're seeing some communication. Like I said, I'm mostly on Twitter, so I'm seeing tweets about, hey, we're counting these days to day 13. If you get on the threshold list, basically 13 days, it starts to trigger supposedly some regulations that can be really favorable for a squeeze. Um, but I want to just talk about this has actually happened before for AMC even, and what happened that time, and just kind of gosh, it's a fine line to walk, right? Like I want to be hyped up and really positive and maintain positive sentiment and frankly be a cheerleader because I love this stock and I want things to go well for us. But I also don't like hopium because I've seen so many times if people talk about dates or prices and then stuff just doesn't work out. Hedgie, I believe, likes to use that against us to kind of try to cause discouragement. When you believe in something and then it doesn't happen over time, maybe that's discouraging. So I'm not at all saying this isn't a thing. I'm not saying anything negative about it. Frankly, I'm also watching this and I'm excited about it. But I want to just share with you a little bit of history on it so that perhaps um, you can go into next week feeling, cautiously optimistic, excited about what could happen, but also prepared for basically anything. So let's just kind of talk about that. First, I want to take you back to actually almost 2 years ago. You can see I'm just showing an example of a tweet of mine. We were tracking this closely. And so here's July of 2021. I've got some other tweets where I talk about this all in June as well. AMC had started to show up on the threshold list. And so we'll talk a little bit in a minute here what even is the threshold list. So I'm just highlighting, go back to that time. You probably find a lot of apes tweeting about this during that time period because at that point, I think a lot of us thought, hey, this could actually trigger the real squeeze. We felt like the run to 72 at that time was a bit of a mini squeeze, maybe some gamma, a lot of options related activity, some different things like that. But frankly, there was still a lot of shorts left that had not covered. So it's hard to call that a full short squeeze when you still have, 70, 80, 90 million shares still shorted back then. So you get the idea, but I'm just saying this happened before and we did hit 13 days. And here's the thing, like it ended up at that time kind of being nothing in some ways. And I hate to say that, but that's what happened. And um, I believe now, and many others believe, that there's a chance that was related to the tokens or stokens, whatever you want to call them. Um, you can go see, actually, I've got a whole YouTube I did on tokens and the timeline of all that. And I talk about June. So they were created in January of 21. There's some more activity that happened in June of 21. It gets into FTX and Binance and a whole lot of other stuff. Go see that video if you want more detail. Just look for kind of a tokens timeline, and it talks about frogs and tigers. So if you see that video, that's the one. Um, but basically, what I'm saying is some believe that perhaps a combination of using the options chain and those tokens was a way that they sort of buried the FTDs without having to really cover them. So there's a little bit of conspiracy theory there, but there's actually what I believe at least a pretty heavy amount of circumstantial evidence that in some way, I suppose if I'm calling it circumstantial, I can't say it 100% proves everything, but there's, if I come up with 12 different dots that all look like they connect, well, that's a lot. And it's a lot more evidence than if you have one or two dots that could connect. So the reason I'm bringing that up is, we know FTX, went under this last November. We saw cost to borrow spike right after that. I talk about all that in that other video. And so certainly something has changed since FTX has gone under and those tokens kind of aren't available. I do believe that's a real thing going on. But I'm just trying to share with you that there is a history. We were on the threshold list. We hit this magical 13 days, 13 trading days on the threshold list. And at that time, nothing happened. So here was the Reddit. So you can go find this. You can see the title of it here if you just want to go find it. I've mentioned on this channel, I used to post in some funny, you can see the sub here. I knew who the moderator of this sub was, and so I was just posting there because she was a true blue ape. She was a legit ape. She's still around. She just doesn't she's not as active these days. I know she's had some health issues and some family stuff. So just another reminder that, hey, just because someone's quiet doesn't mean they left us. People have life that goes on, but we've got a lot of silent apes at our back. So frankly, I take encouragement from that. Anyway, I had posted this on her sub, and because I didn't have like all the karma on Twitter, Reddit back then, and you can go find me, stock underscore retail, I think it is on Reddit, or you can just look up this post. And the thing is, what you'll go through in here, it's actually DD on the threshold list. So if you want to learn more about that, you can see here's like a whole history lesson on Reg Show in 2005 and blah, blah, blah. How does kind of security show up on the threshold list at all? Like there's the math. I had taken time back then to go just read the rules on the SEC website of how does this thing even work. I went through today and looked at this. There's a couple things that'll kind of show, in some ways I was a little more of a noob back then. I'd been in this play for like 6 or 7 months at that time. Here we are another 2 years later, and you learn a lot. So I'm not saying go read this and it's going to teach you everything about life and how to be happy, but it will tell you a little bit. It'll give you, even back then, how I've said on this channel, no trust me bros, I give links in this Reddit. So if you want to even just, in fact, I'll just scroll down and show you, you can get to like, here's the link of how Investopedia talks about it. Here's the link to the SEC's own recap. Here is some discussion on the NYSE, and then here's more from Investopedia. So give you some links there if you want to go do some reading to learn about this threshold list. But effectively, it's kind of like after 5 days of having enough FTDs, and I kind of talk about that math in here, you can read that, then essentially you show up on this threshold list. And then after 13 days of being on the threshold list, so you've got to get to this, that's why it's called a threshold. You've got to get to this like boundary, this line in the sand or threshold, that you've got to have so many FTDs for 5 days. Now you're on the list, and then you got to keep at that level. And if you stay at that level, for 13 days, then it triggers some activity, like I said, that can be pretty squeezy. But and it has to do with them not being able to borrow without cleaning that up, and I talk about all that in here too, and closing out the FTDs and covering some shorts and some stuff. Some of how I described this back then, I'd sort of change that now, but I'm not going to do a whole new DD on this, so I'll just let you go read this. It's close enough; it gets the spirit of what's going on. But and you can, when you read this, you'll see like I was really like, hey, this might be it, this might be happening, and that's why now I'm here today telling you we've been here before. We've been here where people are saying, oh man, if we hit 13 days, this might be the thing. So I do believe, like I said, that it is a big deal. I do believe this might cause some things, after Tuesday. I think Tuesday's maybe the 13th day if we're still on this list, only because Monday's a holiday. But I'm also telling you, just as much as I believe some real things could happen, I also believe that they may sort of sweep this thing under the rug and hide. And now let me tell you a story about Overstock. So here's, another page I'm showing you. This is actually Overstock's own page. Back in 2008, look at these numbers here, guys. So you can see, where was it? Here, look at this. After 838 total trading days and 130 consecutive trading days, they were on the sort of Reg Show threshold list. 130. Everybody's telling you, woo, we're going to hit 13. Everything's going to start flying. Well, it's happened before where someone, was on there a lot longer, and that's not supposed to happen. Like, it's a real problem that ever happened. And here, that was, 2008. The fact that happened is frankly incredibly embarrassing, in my opinion, for the SEC and any regulators, and should have told us that many years ago that effectively we have some real problems in the U.S. financial markets. It's not okay. It's not supposed to happen. It's not okay. I don't know what else to say about that. So I don't know if Gary Gensler ever wants to finally address some of this stuff. We have some real problems where we have regulations that are not enforced. I don't know what else to say about that, because you can go read this and understand what's supposed to happen after those 13 days. Like I said, I've linked it in here. So that's all. I just want to kind of, maybe I'm trying to spare people heartburn or heartache if not much happens next week. in no way am I saying what I think is happening next week. We could fly, we could go sideways. You know, all I know is we're going to go up and down and maybe some sideways, right? So I don't make price predictions. I don't make date predictions on this channel. I think it is worth understanding the threshold list. I just wanted you all to know before you, I don't know, get overhyped that we've been here before and it ended up amounting to nothing. I will say people are right to point out that, you know, there are more shorts now than when that happened. The cost to borrow is higher now than when that happened, and the tokens are effectively kind of gone. So it is very different now. I'm going to admit that, but I just want to ask you guys to be, you know, potentially cautious about how hyped up you allow yourself to get. I'll just kind of finish by saying something I've said on quite a few videos, like when all this stuff gets complicated, and maybe even sometimes when we don't know. Like, I don't know everything that's going to happen. I don't know how this threshold thing is going to play out and if this will finally be something real or not. But I know what's real. I know this company's not going bankrupt. I believe that from the bottom of my heart, and I believe that my DD and the data tell me that. You know, I can see in the financial results, I can see in the cash flows, I can see in the movie industry recovery, the merch selling out, all these things that tell me AMC is not going bankrupt. And we just voted, or many of us just voted, some of you are still yet to vote, on potentially giving AMC, you know, all the capital it could ever need, and then some. So I just don't think they're going bankrupt. And then there's more movies coming than there ever have been. Ant-Man just came out. It's doing fantastic. You know, go see it if you haven't yet. I'm going to go see it tomorrow. And I believe in the apes. And I believe it costs shorts to hold their position. And we know that. Look at the cost to borrow. And the reason I know that's real, you know, go see my video on how much cash are the shorts burning. I did that when my broker was offering me, I think 50% yearly was the rate. And now they're all the way up to 80% yearly. And that's actual cash that would go in my account, which is paid by the shorts, and that's only my cut. As I know I've seen in the past, there's a little bit of FUD around the cost to borrow that people will say, oh, I don't believe that, I don't think that's real, they're not really paying that. Well, I can tell you right now, I know Fidelity, Schwab, E-Trade, and a couple others are actually paying 80% and maybe even more to us, to retail, and that's only our cut. So that means the shorts are paying something more to those brokers to borrow the shares. That's real cash burning every day, so it costs them to hold. So AMC is not going bankrupt. More movies are coming. I believe in the apes. It costs shorts. They're burning cash by the day. I can outweight them. And that was always the thesis. I can hold longer than you can stay solvent. So whether you understand the threshold list, whether 13 days triggers anything, the thesis doesn't change. That's my point. I would love for something to happen next week. I'm hopeful for that, but I'm also ready to wait till the next week and the next week and the next and the next. So good luck, Shorty. Let's go.